action by the board to base textbook adoption strictly on objective criteria defined in statute as opposed to subjective criteria or preferences of individual board members?
Objective versus subjective. Of course, objective. Subjective tells you just what we've discussed right now. Should it be Hispanics? Should it be Apaches? Should it be Indonesians that are here? It has to be objectable, measurable. Yes, I would support that we go in that vein. Otherwise, you have outside influences that are trying to change the way we have our textbooks here. And you have to have a baseline so that all of us can make sure that equity and equality is given in our textbooks and our children's education.
Thank you. If I can just follow up on that briefly. Objective criteria defined in statute. If it's defined in statute as an objective criteria, but yet differs from your personal belief, would you still define the textbook adoption criteria as defined by statute?
So now you're asking me if the objective conflicts with my own personal. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right. I can't answer that until I know what it is, but I do stand for my values. I'll say that. I will stand for my values, and that's why I think that I would be a good representative, because even though there's an objective out there, if it goes against the consensus that we have for doing this, then no.
Thank you very much. Mr. Cortez, would you like the question repeated? Or?
No. I think over the years, this is why the state legislature has had to strip the State Board of Education of its authority little by little, because they believe that it's okay to micromanage at the highest level of the state public education system. So I have values, I have beliefs, but they have no place in our textbooks. If elected, I would strictly follow whatever protocols are required to be followed by TEA in adoption of any curriculum standards.
Mr. Garza.
The law of the land, as it stands right now, is to follow the statute, and I concur with that. I think, and the purpose of that is to make sure that we have a level playing field of all the information that is disseminated to all the children across the state of Texas. We must also keep in mind that the purpose of instructional materials is to educate, not to indoctrinate. And that said, it's important that we keep that level playing field consistent, concise, and clear. So I definitely would support the statute as it stands, without invoking my own personal commitments.
Thank you very much. Ms. Sanchez.
I believe that the decisions should be aligned to the statutes adopted. I don't believe that personal ideologies should be forced on Texans. Certainly not my personal ideologies. And it's sad. I was reading just yesterday that a senator, I believe, from San Antonio has introduced legislation that would require the State Board of Education to do what it's supposed to do, and that is get a 3/4 majority of consensus on the recommendations given by teachers before they're trashed. That's being introduced. And I thought, how sad that we're having to have legislation to get the State Board of Education to do what it's supposed to do. Listen to the teachers.
Thank you. Mrs. Turner?
All right. I think all our textbooks that are adopted should be aligned with our curriculum. It doesn't matter if it's history, science, math, or English. But also, in my opinion, I believe that the board should provide a variety of textbooks from different publishing companies for local schools to decide for themselves. I'm a strong believer in favor of local control, and I think our local school boards and the teachers that they are supporting should be deciding what textbooks they want to adopt. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, question 7. Mr. Cortez, as a member of the State Board of Education, how will you research topics that you do not have expertise in?
How would I research topics that I have no
Yes.
expertise in?
Yes, because I mean, you're going to have a lot of, I mean, you have to cover everything from...
I'd call Ray McMurray. I'd call Linda Bridges and the good folks at AFT. I'd reach out across to ATP, AFT, our friends over at the Freedom Network. I mean, this is how we're going to make our education system better. I don't plan on getting elected and saying, okay, we're going to do things my way. It takes a team. And you're only as good as the team you surround yourself with.
Thank you.
I think if we're going to make the 3 R's, reading, writing, arithmetic, successful, the role of the State Board of Education is to invoke the 3 C's: communicate, collaborate, and commit. And by so doing, you go to all the valued resources that you can. I'm sure that the State Board has their own library of experts or material resources that they can refer to, but you also reach out to people like the Data Center, other centers that do a lot of research in those specific areas that be specific to the particular issue at hand. And then, of course, the classroom teachers in your own respective districts and areas to get their input. It's got to be collaboration, communication. It's got to be bottom-up type of communication, not top-down mandated. And so I think it's very important that we seek any and all resources that we can to have a better view and make a more knowledgeable decision in what we're going to try to promote for the instruction of our kids in the schools.
Thank you. Mrs. Cobb, Mrs. Sanchez.
I agree. I will rely on input from the experts as well as testimonials from practitioners and the curriculum committees that are appointed to do the research. I feel that Mr. Cortez is correct. We're only as good as the people we surround ourselves with, and I will have expert advice from these groups.
Thank you. Mrs. Turner.
All right, well, I'm kind of aligned with everyone else. Collaborate with the experts themselves, and these would again be your superintendents, your curriculum directors, teachers, college professors, business and industry, especially if you are having any type of trades being taught in your schools. They are the experts. They should be the ones who are voicing their opinions and what they feel should be needed. Thanks.
Thank you. Mrs. Anzaldua.
I would reach out to those that are knowledgeable in whatever it is that we need to get information on. And one of the things that I know I've been researching as part of this State Board of Education candidacy is the testing that we've implemented here. One of my basic beliefs is that we need to kind of change that testing. So I've checked into other criteria in other states. So you need to look elsewhere. We don't want to reinvent the wheel necessarily, but there are others that can help us. So yes, you would want to rely on others who can assist us. But something that I'd like to see changed is, yes, the structure of the testing, because I would like to put into place a portfolio system for the graduation of the students. And that would start from the beginning of their educational career until they graduate, and put that hand in hand with some sort of testing, with some sort of curriculum, so that we're not just based on the testing itself.
Just out of curiosity, could you follow up on your portfolio system?
The portfolio system is used by another state, and what they do is you compile the child's work from their primary grades, and you can see how Johnny has learned. It's not any different than mom keeping that little memory book. And of course, you would implement some sort of a standard there that would follow the child. And also, I can see that if little Johnny doesn't understand why Billy over here is doing much better, you can cross out the name and show him this is how it's done. So it's visual. And that's what we need to bring into our students, something that's visual and that they can understand aside from A, B, C, D at the end to graduate.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, candidates. The next question will start with Mr. Garza. More and more states are attempting to tie high-stakes testing results to teacher evaluations. In Texas, do you believe student test scores on STARS, or any other high-stakes test should be used to evaluate teachers on their PDAS?
I think it's an instrument that should be used as part of the whole in the evaluation process, but not the only significant issue to be determined on the PDAS. There are a number of facets that teachers utilize in the instruction of their students, and that's only the only one aspect as opposed to being the aspect.
Thank you. And a follow-up, if a part should be, what percentage of the teacher evaluation process should reflect the student test scores?
I would say no more than maybe 10 to 15%. I think you should have at least 4 to 5 components in equal portions to determine the overall success of the PDAS and the instruction, the teacher instruction. Again, if you put too much emphasis on just that, on the past failure of a student's, teacher's success of the student, I think that causes a detriment to the teacher in trying to do her job and puts more pressure on those that she's trying to serve, he or she's trying to serve.
Thank you very much. Ms. Sanchez?
I don't think there should be any value added. I don't think it's part of the PDAS system, or should be. My opinion is not all students learn, and I've seen it, not all students learn at the same rate. All students can learn, but not at the same rate. I believe that looking at the value added model is a good one for teachers. We add value to that student. Sometimes there's a year growth in that student, even though he's not at grade level, there was still growth. And I think in evaluating teachers, we need to look at the growth that the student has made during that year. That way, I believe we can evaluate teachers more fairly if we include testing as part of their evaluation.
Thank you. Ms. Turner?
All right. Teacher evaluations reflecting student test scores? Absolutely not. That means that you're assuming that a teacher has total control over their classes and every single student that comes into that classroom. We have no control and we have no power of who we see. I have 160 students. You really mean that I am the sole responsibility of that student passing the STAR test that is designed at 3 grade levels above what they are testing at? That's ridiculous, and no. So, I don't know about you, but if I'm going to be held responsible for the learning of every child in my classroom, then I should be able to decide who I have placed in my class. That's not even fair to the teacher who is going to, I'm done. Thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Anzaldua?
Absolutely, positively not. I'm going to tell you why. I've just gone through 2 days of testing. I've been an administrator for the testing, and I have students there who don't want to test, so they put their head down and they sleep. And so I have to come over and gently tap him, and he says, fine. Then I go there again, and the next time I see that hand come up like it's going to hit me. I have to be careful. These kids don't want to be tested because they've been over-tested. Those aren't my students that are being tested there. It's a group of students that they have alphabetized and put me in charge. Me. Not even the direct teacher for that subject. Absolutely not. The way this is done is that it's open and kids don't want to do it because they've been over-tested.
Thank you very much. Mr. Cortez?
I think we need to figure out what the best ways of making our educators happy in the state. I think as I've toured probably about 6 of the 17 counties that we're running this race in, what I hear is educators just aren't happy. They're not happy with what's going on out there. And for us to impose yet another element, why would it make them unhappy? I fundamentally wouldn't agree with that. I think that, I'm married to an elementary principal, and my wife has his motto, happy teacher, happy student. So we need to figure out how we can impress upon our educators that they're doing a good job, because when we create that environment where they're free to do what they're supposed to do, they're going to perform, and our kids are going to do better.
Thank you very much. I understand that a value-added system would come through the legislature, most likely, but you would use your influence on the state boards. That's what I'm hearing you say, that you would oppose a value-added element to teacher evaluations using test scores.
Are you asking if I go with you to Austin and lobby against this?
Yes, sir.
Is that what?
Okay.
Okay. This is my last question for Mrs. Sanchez. 96% of Texas school districts teach either abstinence-only sex education or none at all. At the same time, Texas has one of the highest teen pregnancy rates in the nation. Do you believe that the current sex education system in Texas is working? Why or why not?
Well, I believe sex education is the responsibility of the home, of the parents. If the parents choose for the schools to teach sex education, then I believe that we should offer both the abstinence and safe sex, and let the parents decide which classes they want their students enrolled in. I also believe that there should be an opt-out for the parents if they choose to teach that at home and not want the schools involved at all.
And do you believe it is working, the current system?
According to the statistics, no.
Mrs. Turner.
All right, currently our abstinence programs are not working. According to the Center of Disease Control, Texas rates among the top 10 in the nation. Last year in 2011, 44,000 Texas students were pregnant. Obviously, this is not working. I believe that we should be expanding these programs, and we should be focusing on self-responsibility, consequences. They need to know consequences, and safety for the girls as well as the boys. Thanks.
Do you mean contraception or no?
What?
By safety, do you mean also contraception or?
Teach them how to use? No, they can, no. I don't think we need to teach them how to have sex, but I think we need to teach them how to be responsible and take care of
Not
themselves.
actually how to, yeah, no, I think we have that.
We don't want to teach them how. I think they already know how. 44,000 students were pregnant last year. I think they know that. They just need to know how to prevent it. How's that?
Mrs. Anzaldua.
Obviously, it's not working. We have the statistics. What can we do to change it? Well, yes, we need to try and educate the parents. Why isn't it working, even though we have these educational classes for sex ed, abstinence, have those programs there available? I agree. But these kids aren't going out there to have babies. They're going out there because they're in love. And they need to understand that love isn't just one night. It happens, and then there is a consequence. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Cortez.
Sorry. I was wondering if I was going to get asked a sex ed question tonight. Here it is. No, I don't think schools should be teaching sex education. I don't. I think that is the role of family. I don't think that an already burdened education system would require that we get an educator to have to teach yet another class. And yet again, we move away from the fundamentals. So no, I just don't think it should be taught in our public school system.
As a problem, we already teach things such as hygiene, as brushing teeth, nutrition, and things like that. When sex education, in theory, a parent's supposed to be teaching children this, but due to the obesity rates, I'm guessing that people don't know nutrition very well either.
If you had asked me a hygiene question, I would have answered a hygiene question. If you asked me a sex ed question, then no, I don't think that they should teach it. I mean, if you're asking me if they should teach kids how to brush their teeth, then I'll answer that question. But on sex education, I just don't think it should be taught.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Garza.
I deal with the situation on a day-to-day basis in regards to sex education and the consequences of their failure to adhere to it. So I think first and foremost that it's a responsibility of the parent to address that issue. But it is a societal problem. Societal in the sense that we have a number of thousands of single-parent homes that are living in that situation because of a particular issue of lack of understanding or the consequences of their actions or their whatever. It's important for us to provide an alternative, a conduit of information for children or students who are not aware or have no comprehension of what can happen and the why. I think that's a responsibility we owe it to them. Again, the choice is theirs, but our responsibility is to inform them and keep them well informed as to what options they do have or don't have and what the outcomes of those things are. So I think, yes, we do have to play a role in that because it's a societal issue that if somebody really is failing to take the bull by the horns and address it on their own turn.
Thank you. Thank you. Mrs. Sanchez? Oh, you started. Never mind. I'm so sorry.